Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our webinar session. We are very excited as we have a lot of interesting topics that we are going to tackle for today. I see a lot of people join in, and again, thank you. And we hope all of you are okay during these tough times of pandemic, and we appreciate you for freeing your time and spending it with us. So, let me quickly introduce myself. I'm Yesha, and with me are Joanne, Curvy, and Jimmy to discuss exciting topics that we have for you. And while the presentation is ongoing, if you have any questions, feel free to chat it in the chat box and we will go through that at the end of the webinar. So, for today's webinar, let me there we go. So for today's webinar, we will demo a few of our cool and new features in FormsViewer. We will also discuss the significant FormsViewer issues that we encountered and its fixes. And lastly, we will demo the progress of FormsDesigner. So it's very exciting. So the first feature that we will discuss is this disabling a text box. It's very straightforward. It's disabling a text box which FormsViewer now supports. So when can you implement this feature? So you can use this if you want to disable a text box control after the form is submitted. So there are forms that you want to have restrictions that once you submit it, you can't update it anymore. Or you can also use this if you have a specific condition that needs to be satisfied. So, why is this useful? It prevents users from editing the text box value and prevents users from entering the values if they don't have permission to edit. So, let me show you what it looks like. I have here a sample form, which is an end of day report, and I've already entered a few data. But let's try to focus on the daily progress. Let's add a sample task. And if you noticed here on the right side, the project dropdown is disabled. So that text box can only be enabled if I do have a billable work. So um, that's the how the disabling a text box works. And let me show you how you will be able to apply it to your form. So this is just very quick and easy. So I opened the form that I showed you earlier in InfoPath, and let's click the project drop down. So on the right side, you will see here the disable rule for that drop down. So you can add this formatting rule by just clicking new and then selecting the formatting. And then after you've added the formatting rule, you include here the condition. So what I added is if the billable is equals to no, which is our checkbox right here, this control will be disabled, and you have to check this checkbox here at the bottom. Um, you can also redesign its formatting style, so you can make it bold, italicized, or underlined, or even change its background color, like what I did in our form. So that's how the disabling text box works, which now the Forms viewer supports. Let's go back to our slides. The next feature that we will show you is the validation UI. So this highlights the validation errors and display its details. So why is this useful? The validation UI prevents users from entering invalid data and makes it understandable to users when an error has been encountered or when a form is not submitting. So let me show you a quick demo on what it looks like. And here we go. Let's wait for it to load. So again, we have here an end of day report. So let's leave the fields blank and let's click submit. As you can see here, the formatting of the fields that has errors changed. It is now highlighting the background color as red, and it did not just change the formatting of the field. it is also displaying the error count. As you can see here at the bottom, 7 errors have been found. Um, and it is also displaying the error message details. So, for example, the title field is saying here that please indicate your title. So if we try to add a sample text there and click submit, as you can see, the number of errors decreased and the title error is now gone from the error message. So that is the power of the validation UI. So let me show you how you can apply that to your forms. Let's go to our form. So this is the same form as I've shown you earlier. So the first step that you need to do is to add a validation rule to your field, which we already have for our title field. As you can see here on our on the right side, we have a validation rule. So for you to add a validation rule, just click new and then click the validation. um, Once you've added the validation rule, you can now add a condition. I stated here that if the title is blank, then this will show as an error. And the error that will be displayed, you can indicate that here in the screen tip. You can indicate an instruction, you can indicate an error message on why it happened. So it depends on you on what you want your users uh, to see on your forms. Once you've added the validation, you repeat those steps to the other fields that you want to be validated also. And then once you've done that to all of your fields, you can add a run validation action to your submit button. So as you can see here in my submit button, I do have a run validation action. Um, and in this run validation action, its first uh, action is calling this command, get error count. So what is the get error command? The get error count command. This is for you to find out how many errors do you have in your forms that we can display in your form. So for you to be able to display that count, uh, I set here a field called error count, and then the value of that is the result of that command that we triggered earlier, and then concatenated that with this text. So the result, which is the numerical value of the errors, and this text. And I wanted that error count field to be displayed into my form, which I added here on the left side. As you can see here, this is the error count field. Now, um, another command or cues that you can use is the get errors. So what is the get errors command? So uh, this is where it is used for displaying the field and the error message that you indicated in the screen tip of the field. So um, uh, you can get the result of that command and set it to a field that you want to be displayed into your form. So I set it in the error message and I displayed it into my form. So that's what you are seeing now here in these two tabs. So another addition in this validation UI is that you can change the background color of those validation fields. For demo purposes, I added a background color, a change background color here. So let's select the green color and try to select the submit button. As you can see, I've changed the color of that of those errors. And let's try to change it to blue, and then it turned into blue. So I just wanted to show you that you can do that to your forms to match the designs that you have your forms. So that's how uh, quick and easy you can apply the validation UI. And and for this formatting of changing of the colors, that is using the load resource command in FormsViewer. So that's how you add the validation UI to your forms. Next feature that I want to discuss, which is actually my personal favorite, the auto tab character limit. So this can be used when a form has an intensive data entry task, or you can use it for your form's passcode authentication. So this technique lets you users specify the number characters allowed in a text box and auto run rules for those text boxes. So this is what it looks like. Let me show you another. There we go. So this is the Qdabra authentication powered by Authy. Let me just log in. Once logged in, it will send me an authentication code. But here's where the feature is showcased. When you try to add a passcode, it automatically goes to the next tab, which is very cool. So that is the power of the auto tab character limit. So let me show you how to do that. Here is the form that I showed you earlier, opened in info path, and let's go to the text box that we want to have a character limit. So what you just do is you right click the text box, select text box properties, and then go to the display, and then make sure you check the limit text box too, and then add a character limit. So for this passcode authentication, we indicated it as 1, and then when a character is entered, you check this checkbox, move to next control for it to automatically go to the next tab. So that's how quick you add this cool feature to your forms. And that's it for our new features in FormsViewer. That those features are very quick and easy to apply, and on top of that, it makes your forms very user friendly. So on to our next topic, which is
Chat. It's
going.
Joanne here.
Hi, Joanne.
Yeah. I just want to correct one sample form that we did. Can you go back to the first sample form, the disabling text box?
Here we go.
Yeah. So we're demoing text box, but we mistakenly put the formatting rule in a drop down, and I noticed that. So that was a mistake I did. So can you quickly show the XSN if you have it open, and you can show that you can convert that to a text box and re-upload the XSN to FormsViewer and show everyone that the formatting rule is applied to that text box, because that's the bug fix that we applied.
Sure thing. Let me just add the
Sorry about
condition. Sorry for that, everyone. So let's try is equal
to
to
change
yes,
this
no.
to a false. No,
Yep.
okay.
All right. So if the billable is equal to no, or if the billable checkbox is unchecked, we will try to disable this control, which is our text box. And let's try to save this. Let me upload it quickly for you to see. Here we go. Update. Okay. I'm opening the form now. The drop-down control has been changed to a text box. Sorry for that confusion. All right. Oh, did I check the disable control?
And put some, yeah, check the disable box.
I think it was checked.
or maybe enter some values in the project text box.
All right, I see. So, my bad. You cannot enter in a value. As you can see, I'm trying to click the project text box, but it is
Mhm.
disabled because I did disable the control. But when you try to click the billable, now I can select the project text box. Again, thank you, Joanne, for clearing
Sorry
that
about
out.
that.
Thank you. So that is our disabling text box. You can disable a text box, and that is now being supported by FormsViewer. Again, thank you, Joanne. And on to our next slide, which will be discussed by Jimmy.
Okay, thank you very much. So we've had a bunch of bug fixes in the past few versions. Luckily, nothing too huge so far, but there's just one we wanted to call out. There's some of you may have run into this relatively rare issue where if you had a if you had a file attachment which used the QRules prompt command to communicate anything to the user, like you've attached a duplicate file or something like that. We had a situation where the pop-up could show up behind the processing animation that comes up when the file is attached, and users would be unable to click it. So let me just show you all what I'm talking about. I think you need to stop sharing so I can. All right. I think I need to be a presenter. Sorry. Okay, here we go. Sorry, everybody. All right, so here I've got my form. I've got a file attachment control, and there's just a simple rule on it, which shows thank you for attaching this file. In reality, you might have something more complex, like checking whether this file is a duplicate or too large or something. And then when I actually attach my file, pop-up comes up. So the issue we had was what this was coming up behind the animation, so you couldn't click it. Now you can, and it's all good. Okay. We actually have one ongoing issue, which well, hopefully you won't see, but basically the situation is that the way FormsViewer works is actually we have several servers, 2 on the West Coast and 2 on the East Coast, at least for our US instance. For Europe, we have 2 servers. And the servers need to communicate the user session state with each other so that it's consistent between all of them. And since we have our stuff deployed in Azure, we use something called a Redis cache, which just basically holds on to that data and allows the different servers to share it. Unfortunately, the module that sort of communicates with Redis seems to error out every now and then, every several like months. We've seen, which can cause a short FormsViewer outage until we catch it. This has happened recently in the Europe instance. I think it may have been more than a year since it happened in the US instance, knock on wood. So we're in the process of investigating it. We're improving our error logging since these errors are produced in a way that's not very amenable to logging, but we're working on improving that. And hopefully we'll have that out and running next week so that if the issue does happen, we will be able to track it down better. So just the take-home message here is that we are doing everything we can to remedy this situation. Okay, so I believe it's back to Yesha. So
Yep. So thank you, Jimmy, for that detailed information. Let me just share my screen again. There we go. Again, thank you, Jimmy, for that detailed explanation for us to better understand how and why these issues were encountered. So the next is we will be showcasing the progress of the Forms Designer, which will be discussed and demoed by Kirby. Kirby?
All right, thank you, Yesha. Okay, so let me know if you can now see my screen. All right, thanks. So I'm going to quickly show you the progress and the latest updates in developing Forms Designer. If you haven't seen our last webinar about Forms Designer, go check it out later in our YouTube channel and search for the webinar last September 24th. That is where we show the initial preview of Forms Designer. So back to my tab here. So here I'm showing you our internal expense report form uploaded to FormsViewer, Forms Designer. So the first thing I'm going to demo is the toolbar with formatting options. So let's see, let's try to update the form status text here. Let's change the font color. Change it to bright pink. We can also change the form type and the font size. And I can also add a sample text here and change its font style, make it a title or a heading or a label. And I can also change the alignment of this text, whether I want to align it to the left side, the right, or center. And we have also added the undo and redo buttons here. So for example, if you mistakenly delete a text, you can always use the undo button, or if you want to reverse a previous undo, just click the redo button. And same with InfoPath Designer, we also added the ability to switch form views. We have here this drop down where we can choose the view that we want to switch to. So for example, we want to switch to the confirmation view. So that's the confirmation view, or if you want to change it to the mobile view and back to our default view, which is the expense report. Another feature that we added is the ability to switch between data sources in the fields pane. For those of you who are familiar with InfoPath Designer, this is pretty much the same thing that you'll see. There's a drop down on the top section of the fields pane to choose from all the available data sources. But one simple yet very useful functionality we added in Forms Designer is the sorting of data sources. So if we look into the InfoPath Designer, you're going to see that the data sources here in the dropdown is not sorted, which makes it a bit difficult when you're searching for a specific data source in the dropdown, especially when you have tons of data sources. So we added the sorting functionality here in Forms Designer to be able to arrange the data sources alphabetically so you can find them easier. So once we ship Forms Designer, expect that you'll see little improvements like this. And last but not the least, we finally added the user interface for the rule details in the rules pane. So I'm just gonna click here a sample node to get errors here where you can see this field properties here. And if we click the add rules button, you're gonna see the field rules and the rule properties section here. So as you can see, the buttons and the links are still in development. There's a big difference when we compare the design of the UI from InfoPath Designer, but we definitely retain all the necessary functionalities like disabling rules, copying and pasting. And if we click on this vertical ellipsis here, you're going to see that the rule details are shown in here. So it's showing the name of the rule, the condition, the similar checkbox in InfoPath for stopping the rule. And if we expand this, you're going to see here that there's a drop down where you can select the action, whether you want to set a field's value, switch views, query for data, or close the form. And we also have here this fields where you want to set the field and its value. So I know a lot of you are very excited to use our own replacement for Infopath Designer, and we have more features to add, like changes to the rules pane and also add-ons like importing XTPs. I know lots of you have been using our reusable template parts, and we've been planning to add this functionality in FormsDesigner where you can easily just import these XTPs in your forms in just minutes. So yeah, that's a quick demo on the updates on the FormsDesigner.
Thank you, Kirby, for showing us that development. Let me just quickly share my screen. And here we go. So again, thank you, Kirby, for showing us the development of FormsDesigner. And I personally can't wait to use FormsDesigner in creating and designing forms. Again, thank you, Kirby. So next is Joanne. Joanne will discuss the advantages of FormsViewer.
Thank you. I'm glad we made it here, and I'm happy to learn and watch all the new features. So thank you, Yesha, Kirby, and Jimmy. So if you haven't already, you can try the SharePoint online version of the app by installing it from the SharePoint store. You can search for FormsViewer there, select the app, click Add It, and it's so easy to install. And if you need the on-prem version, we're also here. We're available to help you set up the app in your environment. And why FormsViewer? Because it's the only app that lets you continue your Infopath investment. As you may have heard already, Microsoft will end support for Infopath by 2026. So our goal is to help companies keep their Forms investment. And we're also continuously updating this app with the new features. We're adding support for example, for mobile devices. And we can also integrate your forms with the latest technology like Authy, which can send SMS text messages. We can help you generate PDF reports, save your data to SQL, and many more. And we just launched FormsViewer version 5.2.2, which shipped all these features that Yesha just demoed and also includes the bug fixes that Jimmy has explained. And if you want a quick demo of FormsViewer and what it can offer you, feel free to drop us an email at support@Qdabra.com. We'd be happy to schedule a meeting with you. And if you want to know the latest updates and features, the best place to go is our YouTube channel, so subscribe, and you can watch the webinar recordings and get free trainings from there.
Thank you, Joanne, for that wonderful explanation about FormsViewer and the product and our service. And I think that's it for our webinar. We are nearing the end of the webinar session, and let me just quickly check if you have any questions for us. I see here that we have one question earlier. Which version of FormsViewer do you need to have these work? So I'm guessing you're referring to the features that we demoed earlier. So the disabling of text box works for version 5.2.2, and for the validation UI and the auto tab character limit, this works for version 5.2. So I hope that answers your question. Let me check if we have another question from you guys. We have here our external data source.
Yeah,
So the
Emeka.
question
Mhm.
is Qdabra planning for the users to connect the FormsDesigner to databases? FormsViewer, the public instance, doesn't directly connect to databases for security reasons. You wouldn't want to make your databases publicly accessible. However, we do provide a web service called DBXL, which allows calling your databases from FormsViewer forms and submitting data to them. So we definitely recommend checking out DBXL. And the designer will eventually allow you to set up external data sources. That's not planned for the next iteration, but we definitely have that in mind. The question is, when will FormsDesigner be available? We are working on having a beta version available in January, towards the end of January is the current plan. And then we hope to have, continue fleshing it out until we have a fuller version, hopefully early 2021 or mid 2021.
Okay, thank you, Jimmy, for answering those questions. I'm just double checking if we have more, and I think that's it. Thank you, Jimmy, for that detailed explanation. And if a question comes up in mind, feel free to contact us at support@qdabra.com. And thank you, everyone, for staying with us throughout the session. We had fun showcasing the capabilities of FormsViewer, discussing its bug fixes, and unveiling FormsDesigner's development to you. And we are very excited for you to be able to utilize this on your forms. Again, thank you, everyone, and have a wonderful day.